My first impression of Paris was how well the city was preserved. In London, I have seen modern houses randomly sandwiched in historical building blocks, because between 15 to 40% of the buildings were destroyed or damaged beyond repair during the Battle of Britain in World War II. Berlin of Germany had it even worse. It was bombed throughout the war by British and American bombers, then toward the end, destroyed by the Red Army in the street fighting. Up to 80% of the buildings in Berlin was destroyed in the war. The number of buildings in Paris destroyed by German bombers in World War II? Less than 100. It was on June the 3rd, 1940, toward the end of a French campaign. Germany has defeated the French army outside of Paris, and their bombers dropped some bombs in the city. A week later, the French government departed Paris and declared Paris as an open city, that there would be no resistance. For this very reason, we are able to see Paris as it was 150 years ago. The Haussmann style building that proliferated throughout the city, and their glorious palaces and gardens. It's a bit strange to see the city that survived the war without any marking, like it had no memory of it. Was peace truly an illusion? This video recorded my favorite hike during my first trip to Paris. That took us from the Louvre neighborhood to Montmartre. We walked through the bustling Opera Avenue, past the Haussmann department store, the Trinity Church, then the uphill of Jean-Baptiste Pigalle, Pigalle Plaza, Road Holden, the stairs of Rue Chappe, and emerged in front of Montmartre. If my visit in Louvre and Versailles was a journey to the past, this hike was my trip to the present. I walked where the locals walk. It's as close as I can be to their lives as a passing tourist, and I enjoyed it a lot. At the time of the walk, I had not much idea of the places and the streets. The following narrative was based on my observation, afterthoughts, and research. This road was avant the Louvre, or the Opera Avenue. It was first created as Avenue Napoleon in 1854, which was 33 years after the death of Napoleon Bonaparte. There were many delays to the project, and it took 22 years to complete the road. Before its completion, it was renamed to Avant the Louvre after the new opera house anchored at the north end of the road, Palais Garnier. It was pretty extraordinary that a major new road and a building just dropped from the sky into the middle of a historical city that was already crammed with medieval buildings and narrow streets. It was made possible by the huge event happening in Paris at the time, which was Haussmann's renovation of Paris. The project allowed large building blocks be torn down altogether to make way for new roads and buildings, and allowed the opera house and its dedicated road to be designed from scratch with few constraints. The collaboration between the road and the building also resulted in interesting design. Unlike most Parisian avenues, there are no trees. This was the result of a compromise between Haussmann and Charles Garnier, the architect of the opera house, who desired the best view possible of the main facade of the opera at the end of the avenue. He did not want the view to be obstructed by the leaves and branches. That was some ego. further up the street, I saw a sign that said Opera for September on top of the bus station post. My initial reaction was that an opera would be played on September 4th, but that doesn't make sense. Later on, with some research, I understood that is the bus station name. The date is named after September 4th, 1870, when Napoleon III fell and the Third French Republic was proclaimed. Napoleon III was Napoleon Bonaparte's nephew and the last emperor of France. Interestingly, September 4th was not the French National Day. The French National Day is the anniversary of the storming of Bastille on July 14, 1789, a major event of the French Revolution and the First Republic, and almost 80 years before the fall of Napoleon III in 1870. In these 80 years, Napoleon Bonaparte, the first, his son, the second, and his nephew, the third, all tried to bring back the monarch and failed.
What do you think?
It was a long winding path of a new nation. I can't help drawing the parallel between that history with Star Wars. The Dark Lord Palpatine was the Supreme Chancellor of the Galactic Republic before becoming the Emperor. Napoleon was first consul before Emperor. It turns out there was a link upon further research. According to George Lucas, the creator of Star Wars, the characterization of Palpatine as an ambitious and ruthless politician dismounting a democratic republic to achieve supreme power is in part inspired by the real-world examples of Napoleon Bonaparte and a few others. In other words, Napoleon was the original Sith Lord, and he did have a pretty badass saber, as we have seen in the 2023 movie directed by Ridley Scott. Palais Garnier was named after chief architect Charles Garnier and was completed in 1875. It took 14 years to build and cost 36 million francs, which was 1,000th of French GDP at the time. The building is a major example of Napoleon III architecture style and inspired many similar designs around the world. In early 2023, renovation work started on the building. The facade was covered with scaffolding and then covered by a giant billboard. The billboard advertising by Ralph Lauren probably cost several million euros, which financed part of the 7.2 million euro renovation work on the facade of the building. The work won't finish until the end of 2024, which will be a disappointment for tourists during the 2024 Olympics. The original facade included multiple sculptures symbolizing poetry and music, which was the key elements of opera. Bronze busts of great composers such as Beethoven and Mozart were featured. At the top of the dome sees the sculpture of Apollo and a goddess of poetry and music by sculptor Amy Millet. Palais Garnier was originally built for opera until a new modern opera house was built in 1989. The Palais or Palace is now primarily used for ballet and a major tourist attraction. It's open daily from 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. for a ticket of 15 euros. The interior is full of amazing paintings and sculptures. Its grand foyer rivals the great dance hall of Versailles. Unfortunately, we didn't have time for the tour during our stay, so it will be the next time.
Single file.
Turning right from Palais Garnier, we walked along Rue Halévy, which was named after French composer Fromental Halévy. I noted Google Map had incorrectly labeled this section of the street overlapping with the place Jacques Rouge. The place is really referring to the square created by the surrounding buildings and the intersection, and is named in honor of French opera director Jacques Rouge, who directed the French opera from 1913 until shortly before his death. The French word rue doesn't mean road in English, as I initially thought based on the pronunciation. It just means street in English. The English word road came from a different root word of rad or reed, meaning where you ride horses.
Forcing.
Leaving Palais Garnier, we passed the building decorated with the signs of red and black. This is the building of a French bank, Société Générale, or shorthanded as SocGen in English word. Société means company in English. The name was General Company because the original name was General Company to support the development of commerce and industry in France. Quite a mouthful. SocGen is France's third largest bank by total assets, and this building was the headquarters of the bank for 80 years, from 1915 until 1995. Today it remains as a branch office of the bank, as well as the office of a Société Générale Foundation. The atrium of the building retained much of the original design from 1912 and is quite a splendor in its own right. The glorious past has become the good old days. The bank is a shadow of its past. Société Générale's stock price has never recovered from its height in 2007 and was only 20% of the peak by the end of 2023. It's not just Société Générale. The same malaise has been lingering among all major French banks. Banks are the bellwether and product of the nation's economy. In France, low GDP growth, relatively high unemployment rate, high national debt, and the loss of production jobs have reduced the country's competitiveness in global market. COVID pandemic and the Ukraine war have put further damper on the recovery. One bright spot of the French economy has been tourism. 2023 was record year as the first full year of the post-pandemic era, and even my family made the splash among over 100 million tourists from around the world. Today, tourism accounts for 8% of French GDP and support about 2 million jobs. 8% is huge. In comparison, travel and tourism accounted for 3% of United States GDP. President Macron has made tourism a strategic sector of the French economy. His goal is to maintain France in the first place in terms of a tourism destination worldwide. Yes, the French want us back, and we will be back. This short trip was just a quick appetizer of Paris. Our next trip will be full course of the French cuisine. The buildings on our left was Galeries Lafayette Haussmann, the flagship store of the Galeries Lafayette department stores. When we passed by, we had no idea the store was also a major attraction. Its interior featured a beautiful high glass and steel dome and artistic staircases from 1912. Inside the store during Christmas, the dome hosts his iconic Christmas tree that is an art masterpiece and different every year. The rooftop has a bar, restaurant, and a terrace with a panoramic view of Paris and its monuments, including the Eiffel Tower. At night, the exterior of the store was lit up by hundreds of thousands of LED lights weaved into beautiful patterns. Why is Apollo so prominent in European sculptures? He is the god of sun and light, patron of art and the leader of muses, symbol of justice and eternal youth. He is also unofficially the god of party, and seen bathing with a group of nymphs. So what's not to love? Most importantly, Apollo is a symbol of power, as planets revolve around the sun. The French took a particular liking to Apollo. Louis XIV called himself the Sun King, or Roi Soleil in French, which symbolized his rule at the center of Europe and the world, and the absolute truth as the sun. For commoners or normal people, Apollo was a symbol of privilege. He was born a prince. God handed down a heavenly golden bow to obliterate a beast to gain some military experience. After that, he was assigned a lofty job of department head of music and poetry, driving around his shining chariot, and party all around with beautiful and willing women. That's why all the people born in power wanted to be like him. They don't want to be Hercules, who is a bastard son of a noble and a commoner. Hercules had to go around doing all the dirty work. Kill this lion, kill that hydra, hold up the sky just to get some apples. It's never fair. Our route took us from the first arrondissement of Louvre through the second arrondissement of Beauce, the 9th of L'Opéra, to the 18th of Montmartre. Arrondissement is the equivalent to a district in the USA. Above arrondissement, there is a department, which is very similar to a prefecture in Japan, because they are both self-governed political bodies. A department and a prefecture is similar to a county in the USA. Before political modernization, both France and Japan had provinces. Provinces are the heritage of monarch rules. Their officials are appointed by the emperor or central government, and not elected by people. A province doesn't have a legislative body, and was merely an executive office. During the French First Republic, departments replaced provinces. Same thing happened in Japan's Meiji Restoration. Prefecture replaced provinces. It's much more than a name change or coincidence. The new governing body represents a municipality instead of a province, meaning it has a high level of autonomy, has its own legislative body and executive office. The change transferred more power from the central government to locals, or the federation of power. It's a fundamental step of democratization and a breakaway from a monarch. This is the end of the part 1 of the walk. In the next video, we will continue from the Trinity Church and climb the scenic uphill streets to Montmartre. See you there.